In the small town of Willowbrook, there lived a young girl named Emma. Her family owned an apple orchard, and every fall, they produced the most delicious apples in the region. But the journey to those juicy apples was anything but quick. When Emma was a little girl, her grandfather, who had planted the first apple trees, taught her the importance of patience. "Emma," he would say, "these trees don't bear fruit overnight. It takes years of nurturing, care, and time. But when they finally do, the reward is sweeter than anything you can imagine." Emma held on to these words as she grew up. She loved working in the orchard, learning the art of pruning, watering, and protecting the trees from pests. Each year, she eagerly awaited the first signs of blossoms, knowing that each step was a part of a much longer process. One spring, however, a terrible frost swept through Willowbrook. Many of the blossoms that promised a bountiful harvest were destroyed. The townspeople were disheartened, and some of the neighboring farmers decided to cut their losses and switch to quicker-yield crops. But Emma's family held on to their belief. Her father reassured her, "We've faced tough times before. The trees have strong roots, just like our family's belief in patience. We'll see this through." Throughout the summer, Emma and her family worked harder than ever, nurturing the surviving trees and planting new saplings. Emma would often sit under the shade of the oldest apple tree, reading her grandfather's old journals. In them, he had documented the many challenges he had faced and the lessons he had learned. Each entry was a testament to his unwavering faith in time and patience. As the years went by, the orchard slowly recovered. The new trees grew, and the older ones regained their strength. Emma's dedication never wavered, and she continued to believe that good things take time. One autumn, 10 years after the devastating frost, the orchard was filled with the most bountiful harvest they had ever seen. The apples were larger, juicier, and sweeter than anyone could remember. Word of the miraculous recovery spread, and people from neighboring towns came to taste the legendary apples of Willowbrook. Emma stood in the orchard, now a young woman, and looked at the thriving trees. She felt a deep sense of pride and fulfillment. The journey had been long and often challenging, but the reward was undeniable. She knew that her grandfather's wisdom had guided them through the toughest of times. One day, as Emma was walking through the town, she met a young boy named Tommy, who was struggling to grow a small vegetable garden. He was frustrated with the slow progress and was on the verge of giving up. Emma knelt down beside him and shared her story. She told him about the frost, the years of hard work, and the incredible harvest that had come after so much patience. "Remember, Tommy," she said, "good things take time. Your garden will grow if you nurture it with care and patience." Tommy looked up at her, inspired by her words. He decided to give his garden another chance, tending to it with the same care Emma had shown her orchard. Years later, Tommy's small garden flourished into a beautiful, thriving vegetable patch, and he often thought back to Emma's story. It became a cherished lesson he carried with him throughout his life. And so, the legacy of patience and the belief that good things take time continued to flourish in Willowbrook, passed down from one generation to the next, nurturing dreams, and bearing fruit sweeter than anyone could have ever imagined. Let's learn some words from the story. Apple orchard. Meaning, a piece of land planted with apple trees. Example, the Smith family owns an apple orchard where they grow and harvest different varieties of apples. Pruning. Meaning, the process of cutting away dead or overgrown branches or stems to encourage healthy growth. Example, to ensure a good yield, the farmers spent the winter pruning the apple trees. Bountiful harvest. Meaning, a large amount of crops gathered at the end of a growing season. Example, thanks to the ideal weather conditions, the orchard had a bountiful harvest this year, with bushels of apples overflowing. Devastating frost. Meaning, a severe cold spell that causes significant damage to plants. Example, the unexpected devastating frost in late spring killed many of the young apple blossoms, leading to a reduced crop. Miraculous recovery. Meaning, an unexpected and astonishing return to good condition after a period of difficulty. Example, despite the harsh frost, the apple orchard made a miraculous recovery, and the trees were soon full of blossoms again. Thriving tree. Meaning, a tree that is growing vigorously and healthily. Example, after years of care, the once struggling sapling had grown into a thriving tree, laden with ripe apples. Undeniable. Meaning, unable to be denied or disputed, clearly true. Example, the undeniable success of the harvest was a testament to their hard work and dedication. The Princess and the Seven Dwarfs. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, nestled between lush green hills and sparkling rivers, there lived a kind and beautiful princess named Isabella. Her golden hair flowed like rivers of sunshine, and her eyes were the color of the deepest sapphires. Her parents, King Leopold and Queen Annabella, ruled the land with fairness and compassion. Under their reign, the kingdom flourished, and the people lived in harmony. One bright morning, Princess Isabella decided to explore the forest that bordered her father's kingdom. She donned a simple, flowing gown and set off on horseback, accompanied by her loyal steed, Stardust. The forest was a place of magic and mystery, with towering trees, singing birds, and flowers that seemed to whisper secrets. Isabella loved the tranquility and the sense of adventure it offered. As she rode deeper into the woods, she stumbled upon a small, hidden path that she had never noticed before. Curious, she followed it until she came to a clearing. In the center of the clearing stood a quaint little cottage with a thatched roof and colorful flowers blooming all around it. The sight was so enchanting that she couldn't resist taking a closer look. She dismounted and knocked on the door, but there was no response. The door creaked open, revealing a cozy interior. There was a large fireplace, a rustic table set for 7, and 7 tiny beds lined up neatly against the wall. Exhausted from her journey, Isabella decided to rest for a moment. She lay down on the smallest bed and fell into a deep, peaceful sleep. As the sun began to set, the true owners of the cottage returned. They were 7 dwarfs, each with a distinct personality: Doc, the wise leader; Grumpy, who always had a scowl; Happy, with his perpetual smile; Sleepy, who could barely keep his eyes open; Bashful, who blushed at the slightest attention; Sneezy, who had a constant cold; and Dopey, the lovable and silent one. When they saw the beautiful princess sleeping in their beds, they were both surprised and delighted. Doc, with his spectacles perched on his nose, gently woke her up. "Who are you, dear lady?" he asked kindly. Startled, Isabella sat up and said, "I am Princess Isabella. I got lost in the forest and found your lovely cottage. I hope you don't mind that I rested here." The dwarfs, charmed by her grace and kindness, immediately offered her a place to stay. "Of course, you can stay with us, Princess Isabella," Doc said. "We would be honored to have you as our guest." Days turned into weeks, and Isabella grew fond of the dwarfs. She helped them with their chores, cooked delicious meals, and brought joy and laughter into their little home. In return, the dwarfs adored her and protected her like their own sister. She would tell them stories of the palace and teach them songs, while they shared their knowledge of the forest and its wonders. One evening, as they all sat by the fireplace, Isabella asked about the forest's secrets. Doc, stroking his beard thoughtfully, spoke of the enchanted creatures that lived deep within the woods and the ancient magic that protected the land. The dwarfs warned her about the dangers as well, especially the evil Queen Malvina, who resided in a dark tower far away. Meanwhile, in the palace, Queen Malvina, who was deeply envious of Isabella's beauty and goodness, discovered her whereabouts through her magic mirror. Her jealousy consumed her, and she concocted a wicked plan to rid herself of the princess once and for all. Disguised as an old peddler woman, she ventured into the forest with a basket of poisoned apples. Her face was twisted with malice as she made her way to the dwarf's cottage. She knocked on the door, and Isabella, always kind-hearted, welcomed the old woman. "Good day, dear girl," the disguised queen said. "Would you like to taste one of my delicious apples? They are fresh and juicy." Isabella, unaware of the danger, took an apple and bit into it. The poison worked instantly, and she fell to the ground, unconscious. The queen, satisfied with her deed, fled back to her dark tower, believing her plan had succeeded. When the dwarfs returned home, they found Isabella lying lifeless on the ground. Their hearts broke at the sight. They wept and mourned her deeply, placing her in a glass coffin adorned with flowers. Days turned into weeks, and the forest itself seemed to grieve the loss of the beloved princess. News of Princess Isabella's plight eventually reached a neighboring kingdom, where a brave and noble prince named Alexander resided. He had heard tales of her beauty and kindness and felt compelled to find her. He rode his horse tirelessly through the forest, determined to reach the dwarf's cottage. When Prince Alexander arrived, he was struck by the sight of Isabella lying in the glass coffin. Her beauty shone even in her apparent death. Overcome with sorrow and love, he leaned over and gently kissed her forehead. Miraculously, the poison spell broke, and Isabella's eyes fluttered open. The dwarfs, who had been keeping vigil, cheered with joy as Isabella and Alexander gazed into each other's eyes. They knew they were destined to be together. The prince took Isabella's hand, and they rode back to her kingdom. Upon their arrival, King Leopold and Queen Annabella welcomed them with open arms. The evil Queen Malvina, seeing that her plan had failed and fearing retribution, fled the kingdom in disgrace, never to be seen again. Princess Isabella and Prince Alexander were married in a grand celebration that lasted for days. The dwarfs were honored guests at the wedding and received the highest recognition for their bravery and kindness. Together, Isabella and Alexander ruled their kingdom with wisdom and love, ensuring that peace and happiness reigned for generations to come. The story of their bravery, the kindness of the 7 dwarfs, and the triumph of good over evil was passed down through the ages, a timeless testament to the power of friendship and true love. And so, they all lived happily ever after.